Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Wall Street to Bay Street, Sunday Chat with Sharia Portfolio Canada. Today is July 4th, 2021. My name is Nadeem Mia.
And my name is Shamil. Get your chai ready, and let's get going here. Hopefully everyone had a great, Canada Day long weekend. You can see Nadeem and I repping our red, or if you want to call it burgundy, that's fine too. So yeah, let's get right into it. Nadeem, why don't you, picking up on our conversation regarding oil last week, there was a pretty important meeting with OPEC. Why don't you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. So OPEC and non-OPEC ministers finished their meeting this Friday without any concrete resolution, and they will meet again on Monday to discuss basically the oil output policy. This is reported by Reuters. Right now the Energy Alliance, basically what they're saying is they're often referred to as OPEC plus. They met via video conference, and they decided whether to keep the output policy unchanged or to ramp up the supply further. So most of the members, with the exception of the UAE, agreed to easing of cuts and their extension to the end of next year. And this was according to Reuters. And they cited an OPEC plus source for that. So right now, I mean, there seems to be kind of, and the market, the market's reaction to that was oil actually rallied on this. The NYMEX August futures contract, WTI, did trade topped at $76. Was it yesterday? So oil did obviously rally on that. And I guess the reason why is that clearly demand is, as we mentioned, is starting to pick up as life is getting back to normal. And if supply seems to be also increasing, but maybe not as much as what the market's expecting, obviously is a bullish thing for oil.
Perfect. And I guess given that we are in July, why don't we talk a little bit about it's a pretty eventful month in June. So why don't you tell us a little more kind of how June went overall with the markets?
Sure. So, I mean, all markets, the S&P 500, the Dow, NASDAQ, they all had a great month. In fact, a lot of these market indexes are trading close to their all-time highs. And however, NASDAQ and technology specifically did have a great June. We saw rallies in a lot of the tech names who from the previous 4 months, you could say, were a little bit, underperforming the market. So we did see a lot of strength in technology. We saw some correction in commodity and even some oil stocks. They did modestly pull back. Kind of, again, going with the rotation theme that we've talked about in the past.
Perfect. Given we're about halfway through the year so far, in 2021, can you maybe shed some light on kind of the best performing and the worst performing sectors?
Yeah, sure. So if you take a look at maybe some of the ETFs, the sector ETFs that will give you an indication as far as what has performed well and what hasn't. The top three sectors. Number one was energy, and there's a ETF out there called XLE that was up, about 43%. It's up 43% year to date. And that this is basically an ETF of the largest North American energy companies. Second were financials, where we track an ETF called XLF. And again, this is basically a fund made up of the largest U.S. banks. And that was up about close to 25% year to date. And the last sector that did quite well was the third best performing sector was real estate. And again, that's also an ETF, XLRE, and that ETF was up about 22%. So basically in that order, energy, financials, real estate, those are the top performing sectors. And as far as, some of the worst performing sectors, I mean, sectors like utility, consumer staples, those were kind of two sectors that did underperform. Having said that, even though markets are trading at their highs, something weird is going on in the sense that, typically you would expect, Apple and Amazon to also be up, double digits. Like the S&P is up about 14.5% year to date. Apple and Amazon are both up really only in single digits. Apple up maybe less than 5% year to date. Amazon up just under 6% year to date.
Perfect. It's gonna be interesting to see, how this continues going forward, and we'll keep an eye on it. There's also been some rotation in the market recently. So why don't you kind of elaborate a little more on that as well?
Yeah, kind of, going back to what I was saying earlier, where like I said, Apple and Amazon are only up single digits year to date, whereas the S&P 500 is actually up about 14.5% year to date. So what we've seen is, we haven't exactly seen an even rise up. We've seen, the financials and energy and real estate kind of carry the market, whereas, like the biggest companies, the biggest tech companies out there, like Apple, Amazon, really underperforming during this time. So we have seen some of that rotation through the course of the year, but June has been kind of, the opposite. We've kind of seen something a little bit more familiar with big tech leading the market as far as the month of June goes.
Awesome. And we've talked a lot about kind of the first half of the year. What are some things that we should be on the lookout for the next half of the year?
Sure. I mean, so far, as far as some of the potential issues or risks that we should kind of keep out for, I mean, as of late, unfortunately, there is a lot of chatter about this Delta variant, COVID, another coronavirus or whatever you want to call it out there. Does that lead to another, lockdown or some type of restriction where, that's something I think that, we've seen in the past the market go through. And so it is a potential, a risk, if you want to call it, that we have to kind of look out for, make sure that, it kind of doesn't get out of hand. Another thing that, people like to talk about is the markets are at all-time highs. Are we getting to a point where, our valuation is a little bit too excessive? So do we get a pullback? These are some of the questions that investors are probably asking. And the last thing that I'll probably say is that, July, which obviously middle summer, seasonably speaking, can be a time of the year where people kind of take a break off the markets, and you can get that choppiness, from a seasonal standpoint.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all the topics we had, scheduled for today. Thank you guys for joining us. And, if you have any other questions that you'd like us to talk about, feel free to put them in the comments below. And hopefully we'll see you guys with your chai ready to go next week.
All right. Have a nice weekend. Welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Nadeem Mian, Portfolio Manager, registered as an advising representative, and Shamil Devji, Financial Advisor, registered as a dealing representative with Sharia Portfolio Canada Inc., a portfolio manager registered in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. Their opinions and statements expressed in this show are their personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect those of Sharia Portfolio. They are effective as of the date of this broadcast only and are subject to change. This discussion is for general information purposes only and is not investment advice.